I mean, I would do probably the same thing you would do in the lobby, we'll do on stage. Now for the mediocre news. The mediocre news is he's running late. This is not a huge shock to me, frankly, because I do a lot of these and they seldom run on time. They're like Italian trains. I'm Italian, so I can say that. Anyway, we will be with you in short order to do all these kind of fun stuff. We have to keep you satiated and placated. Someone from MCM London is here to do things to you in the form of swag. Do you know swag? Are you familiar with that term, right? Do you know, I don't have any money or I don't work here. I would give you something. Can anyone tell me what the word swag stands for? Not subtextually, madam. The letters SWAG actually mean something. Anyone know? You're going to love it. You're going to actually tell someone. It means stolen without a gun. That's why they call it swag. I've lived in Hollywood too long. Anyway, the bottom line is thank you for being here. Donnie will be here. I've been here for a while, and we're going to get to it. And with no further ado, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but he's going to be here. I saw some Star Warsian things to keep you happy. So, Mr. MCM, if you want to come out here and do some things, or I could tell some off-color American jokes, some Donald Trump jokes, although there's nothing funny about that. Last question, I guess, before I leave. And you've got to be serious with me because I'm a little worried that martial arts cinema is sort of gone the way of disco. I don't know where it is anymore. Are there any real, hardcore martial arts film fans here? So there are people who still, love this stuff, right? I hope. What do you think martial arts cinema matters? Or do you think it's just like a kind of anecdote? Do you think movies are a good way to kind of show martial arts artistry and movie stars? Is this yeah? Why? What makes it so desirable still? Because you can't, you can see it in a movie theater on occasion, but it's still something like you can kind of share intimately. Why do you still like this genre? The power of the human body. There's an artistry, the human artistry. Okay. Other theories as to why this is still a relevant genre? Yeah. It's okay. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting point. The gentleman said, and to put these points together, there's a kind of spiritual yet tangible. I was watching Enter the Dragon last night. I had this awful week where I had to watch martial arts films all the time. It was an amazing week. And I was watching Enter the Dragon. What's interesting about Enter the Dragon is Bruce Lee, he really spoke his philosophy of life in that movie. If you hear, and the character's name is Mr. Lee in that movie. So they're so personal in that way. And he talks very candidly about why martial arts matters, why spirituality matters. So these metaphors are very direct and personal. Anyone have a favorite Donnie Yen martial arts film? What? SP what? Killzone? SPL Killzone. This interesting thing about that film, that was before Ip Man. And that film was so, it had a fair amount of effects and wire work. They were very reluctant to cast Donnie in that film. And if you tell him this, I'll deny it. Because that film was so slick. And they wanted someone who could really capture this almost analog form, and I think Donnie represents the best of both, and Ip Man represents the best of this kind of analog Bruce Lee, ism. So I think that's an interesting choice. And Ip Man 4 is coming. Can I tell? Did you guys know that? Yes. Okay, I can say that. Does he know that? Is this common knowledge? One thing we're going to do when Donnie Yenn comes, and I say when, not if, is we're going to talk. Our talks tend to stay away from like anything you can hear on Wikipedia. We tend to not put in here. This is very much opinion and craft based. We're going to try to get to questions depending on when he comes. I mean, to be honest with you, time shrinketh. Cool. Any other favorite action? I mean, this is the question I always ask my students. Besides Donnie Yen, are there action heroes you go to see? I watched Predator on the plane this morning from New York. That thing is badass. That movie is badass still. It's amazing, that movie. And I was thinking because that movie so inspired The Expendables. There's a whole sequence of lines, I don't know if you remember, where Carl Weathers said, you're expendable. And he basically says, my men are not expendable. Like, it was so cool. Anyway, are there stars that you still go to see, like no matter what they're in, action film you'll go to see? And who? Scott Adkins. Okay. Who else? Jet Li. Okay. Anyone? Who else? I'm sorry. I'm not familiar. What? Oh, Ong Bak. Yes, Tony Jaa. Yes, I'm American. I would say Tony Jaa. Sorry. Yet again, I'm apologizing for my country. What about women? Who in the genre? Which women are interesting and exciting? Is Michelle Yeoh still interesting to you? She's doing the new Star Trek, which I think is totally badass. Like Zhang Ziyi, is she someone you guys like? Here's a crucial question. There will be giveaways. Who saw The Great Wall? I don't mean the real wall. I mean the Zhang Yimou, and I'm a huge Zhang Yimou fan. I mean, what's not to like? What did you guys think of The Great Wall? Amazing. Is that the same person who said amazing and shit? Or those two different people? That's an important point. Why did you think it was amazing, sir?
It was East meets West meets science fiction. It was just a spectacle. It was amazing.
East meets West, science fiction. And why did you think...
The quality of the special effects, the outfits,
the look. Yeah, Zhang Yimou has an incredible eye. And why did you think it was shit, sir? The story was kind of shit? What did you think of Matt Damon? Man, America's getting a beating up here. It's funny. I was thinking about that. When you're on a plane, you have a lot of random thoughts. I was thinking, America, no matter what you think of American film, and I have my own opinion, it is still a really great export of ours. It's fascinating. And that's why I love coming to Comic-Cons, because I think it represents the strength of the culture. I always say this to my film students. I wish film lovers were as passionate as Comic-Con lovers and comic book lovers, because you guys represent, I think, what movies used to be. Oh, I got to see this movie. I got to go. I got to do this. You're here. I think movies need you. I think movies need this. So I'm really honored. And I will just say one last thing before I hand it over to MCM Comic-Con for giveaways.
Yeah, let's go.
Great. Thank you for being here. We wouldn't do these without fans, because we're fans too. This man is going to come from behind the
Hello.
curtain. Pay no attention to him. He's going to give you things. Thank you for being here.
Hang on a minute. Pay no attention. There we are. Thank you very much, young man. Right, Mr. Yen is very busy at the moment. He is still signing. So he will be joining us very shortly. We will be keeping you updated about that. But in the meantime, thanks to some of our generous sponsors here this weekend, I've got a nice box of goodies. Oh, good. Who's been in the Gold Theatre today? No, good. Wow. Okay, that's good. That was louder than the entire Gold Theatre, so thank you for that. So thank you very much. So we're going to give away as many things as we can get through, and hopefully the entire box saves me carrying it. We're going to start off, though, thanks to our friends at the Amazing Cake Company. They make cupcakes, amongst other things, and also have some rather lovely American sweets there. Now, they've given me these to give away, kind of apt, I thought, in part. some Star Wars swirl lollipops. So we've got some basically giant things for you to suck on. That's all I'm going to say, and I'll just leave you to interpret that however you may. And from those laughing, I know exactly how you interpreted it. Wash your minds out with soap, please. Right, so who would like a Star Wars swirl pop? There we are. Oh, you've dropped your phone. That's excited about a lollipop. She dropped her phone. I'm hoping the phone wasn't damaged, because it will cost more than the lollipop to repair it. Right. Go towards the back here. I'm hoping that's your lightsaber that's giant and green, sir. There we go, yeah. Hello. And I'm going to go right towards the back just to show that I'm not mean. Right towards the back. In fact, I'm going to go to the very back. You're making me walk now, sir. I mean, look at that. Right, here we go. Enjoy that. There we go. Whew. Don't forget, following this panel, we'll be taking a look at some Universal UK film slates. So if you want to stay around for that, you can see some cool stuff from films such as The Mummy and Despicable Me 3. And we've also got a nice, cool little competition, which will you'll get the chance to be your own minion, is what I'm going to say, without giving it away. So, also just a quick thing, during this talk, I haven't been made aware of this moments ago, except for the guys from the film school, there should be no one video recording this panel at all. Okay, so no press video recording it at all other than the film school, which Rob is a part of. So please, please do not record it. Flash photography, keep it to the first few minutes. After that, just general photography as well, because we don't want Donnie blinded. Because, boom, boom. Come on! I know it was bad, but you know. Right. Speaking of Universal, I'm going to be generous to somebody now. I wasn't going to give this out till later, but as you're waiting patiently, this is rather cute. And it is from the film A Secret Life of Pets. It's actually a lovely little... I'm going to stand right back because that's about to go screeching. A little doggy backpack. It is literally like a little doggy. It has a little Max tag on it. It says Max the dog. Unfortunately, you're probably not going to fit much in it. Bit of a design flaw there. Looks good, fits nothing. So many jokes. So, who would like a Max the dog backpack to look cool in? Oh, yes. I'm going to give it to this couple here and their little baby. It's about... I don't think he can... Is that he or she? She. I don't think she can wear it just yet, but in time she will. Oh, she's tiny. Oh, is it her first Comic-Con, is it? Oh, so cute. So there we are. That's a little baby that's got a little dog now. And that's a considerably easier to take care of dog. Right, we've also got these. These are actually rather cool because these don't actually hit the shop shelves until July. So very rare you get something cool to see these kind of things when you're in publishing. This is an uncorrected proof of a book. So this is what happens before the editors get their hands on it. And this is a book that's kind of like a Game of Thrones fantasy series. It's called Empire of the Salt, Darien Empire of the Salt. It's due to be released fully in June. But now, I believe it's something else time. I just pushed my box away. It looks like I'm like in Only Fools and Horses, doesn't it? Right, I believe... Yes. So, London, in a minute, I want you to go absolutely crazy and raise the roof, all right? Show massive amount of love to our guest when he comes back out with Rob. But in the meantime, I think we are about ready to, as they would say in the Thunderbirds, go. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back on stage, Rob. Okay.
Okay, so better than Italian trains. Let's get started. My favorite students, I'm a film teacher, my favorite students are the ones that drop out of school. Today's guest is such a student. He actually learned a lot of his moves when he should have been in school on the mean streets of Boston. He was tracing lines, practicing motions and movements. This is my kind of student. He's learned his lessons pretty well, from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Shaolin Kung Fu to Chinese boxing. He's covered it all. He's a true Sifu of the form. Please welcome to the Modern School of Film, simulcast on Murmur Radio, Master Donnie Yenn.
Hello. Hi, everyone. A lot of people turned up today, huh? I'm so touched. Well, thank you for coming out here, and I hope that we're gonna have a good time chatting.
I feel no pressure.
Yeah. I feel a little pressure. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you guys.
No, this is, I tell my guests this is not an interview, it's a conversation with 600 of your closest friends. And we have some visual aids, some slides that will help my feeble memory. Thank you, my friend. It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's an honor to be here with you. It's funny, I was thinking, in Asian culture, there's a kind of reverence for people of accomplishment. I was thinking, of Jackie Chan is known as Dago, which means big brother. Do you have such an appellation? Do you have do people on sets call you by a shorthand now that you've established?
Mr. Yenn? They call me Brother Don.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a culture thing in the Chinese community, that they call each other, they call a senior brother this, brother that.
Right.
And but no, the past 10 years, I got this nickname within the industry. They call me the universe strongest. So in the beginning, it was really funny because some media, some paparazzi start calling me in this, and then it became a nickname. And I think because the last 10 years, or maybe the last 35 years, I've done 70 movies, and I've done from period films to moderns. I played all the heroes. Never expected to be a hero in the Star Wars universe, and now I became a hero in the Star Wars universe.
I heard something about that.
Yeah.
I noticed that in passing. And you're also, not to go back, but you're also in the movie Hero, which is, I think, one of the great modern action films ever made. We were talking about Zhang Yimou before.
Yeah, Hero.
Which is, the great fight with Donnie, and we're gonna get to all these different forms of embarrassment with you. I was thinking of the word, it's used in the Ip Man series a lot, sifu. How do you define that? How do you define it?
It's just, you can call it, I think anybody who's accomplished and accomplished a lot with their knowledge and skills, where they can share and pass on to others. That individual can be called a sifu, teacher.
Do you consider yourself sifu?
I think I'm both. I'm a teacher, as well as a student, and
Yeah.
I always tell my students, and I don't have martial arts students because I dedicate most of my life in the last 20-something years in the film industry. So I would rather call myself a full-time filmmaker and then I'm an amateur martial artist. But everybody on the set, I consider them, I guess, students, because I like to share my
Yeah.
experience in the whole decades of making action movies. But at the same time, I consider myself a student because each time I finish a movie, I look back and I say to myself, there are so many areas where I can be even better. And I have trying to keep that kind of way of thinking. It just came natural to me that in each movie I strive for a breakthrough. The more I strive for a breakthrough, the more I feel like there are so much more to learn.
Yeah.
So I think I think the more I learn, the more I feel like I'm a student.
There's a great humility about your work. You know, when I think we're going to talk about some of the great martial artists today, when I think of you, one of the first words is humble. Your performances are very passionate, but humble. And it's not just the characters. I don't think you can fake humility. There's a beautiful humility. But there was a real master in your family, and it's your mom's kind of a badass. Bao Sim Mark is, you know, and you've talked often about how you learned from her. She is a Sifu. Talk a little bit about her starting you. Maybe these are stories you've told, but how influential was she in your getting into martial arts?
I was born in China, and during that, when I was 2 years old, my father took me to Hong Kong from China because that was before China really opened up. And I was separated with my mom for almost 8 years while I was living in Hong Kong with my father. My mother was in China, dedicated her time into martial art. She's always been a martial artist, aside from she's a soprano. That is a very strange combination, but I'll get to that too. She sings and she's a soprano, but then she dedicated herself into practicing martial arts and then became very, very good. And eventually she became a master.
Started at the Institute, the Wushu Institute.
So when our family finally reunited around when I was about 10, 11 years old, she came to Hong Kong and united with us. I started studying martial arts with her. Then after 2 years later, we moved to Boston, then where she opened up the Martial Art Institute.
Around 1976, if my crude memory
I
serves.
went to Boston in 75, 76.
Yeah, around there.
Right, around that time, and my mother opened up the Chinese Wushu Institute, Martial Art Institute. I was 11, and I started to really pursue the art of martial arts.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I was always immigrants. Your parents always have no time for the kids. So, all they do is work all day, and I was always a rebel and always curious about other forms of art besides what my mother taught me. And I used to run around and explore the different style of martial arts through my friends studying. Like you have friends, and maybe he studied karate, and I go to karate dojo or taekwondo or even boxing. I used to go to a boxing gym when I was 14 years old in these really, really bad neighborhoods called Roxbury. It's kind of like a Harlem to New York.
It's a really rough area of Boston.
Anyway,
really
now I look back, I said I don't know what I was thinking. I was 14 years old, and I took a train, and I went to this really run-down area boxing gym, and I was really skinny, little tiny kid. But that was the kind of personality I grew up with curiosity and went out and explore. I think those were the years where it built my foundation in martial arts, and it helped my film career eventually.
And your sister also, Chris, was a practicing
right.
martial artist. Wushu, tell me, pardon my crude memory here, does that word literally translate into martial art? Is Wu martial?
Wushu mean exactly, it's the exact translation words from the 普通话, the Mandarin, that's the practiced national language in China. But before that, everybody called the Chinese martial art as Kung Fu, as you know.
Right.
That's Kung Fu movies. That's where the words come from, Cantonese language.
Yeah. In a minute, we're going to talk about something called Gung Fu, which is Bruce Lee talked a lot about Gung Fu, which we'll talk about. You know, your buildings you've built. It's like this is not a retirement, by the way. This is not some weird retirement party, because I think you're now getting the attention that you've long deserved. I mean, your work in film. If you stare over my shoulder, I mean, this is just a fraction of the incredible films you've done.
You know, I look back and I say, wow, my God, I did 70 movies, you know? I mean,
I can only fit like 9 on the PowerPoint, sorry. But one thing I wanted to draw your attention to, Drunken Tai Chi, which is, because I want to talk a little bit about Wu Ping later on, but talk about when you first started doing martial arts films. Did you grow up?
I grew up watching Kung Fu films like most of you guys, right? I grew up in Chinatown, and one of my hobby was watch these what do you call it? The double matinee. Like you pay one ticket and you get to watch
like a double feature.
Double feature, right?
Yes.
So I used to watch every single one of them. Every single one, you know. I mean, from all the old days, Golden Harvest movies, Shaw Brothers movies. I watch every single one every week, probably 3 or 4 movies a week, and then I would imitate all the Jackie Chan movies, all the Jackie Chan kung fu martial arts, and of course, all the Bruce Lee movies. I used to imitate them back in my mom's school. Like I would watch maybe 36 Shaolin, the Shaolin's 36 chamber, and then I'll go back to my mom's school and then perform.
Did you do that thing where the knives, he has knives under his arms, and if he drops the buck, did you do the torture parts of the Shaolin? No.
No, I didn't do that part.
I got you. No, but it's amazing. That's wonderful that you would kind of mimic what you saw.
Oh, yes. I mean, obviously just like fans, I used to think, wow, can a person do that? I used to imitate all the Jackie, when he does all the drunken master, and he does the whole form. And not until later when I got into filmmaking, it's shot by shot, or they cranking up the camera, or certain techniques you can manipulate to look a certain way. And then we get to that later. I mean, I have some really interesting story about my first experience in Drunken Tai Chi with my director, Wu Ping.
Amazing. When I tell you, and this you can't debate this, there are young people out there imitating you now.
I think so now.
It's amazing. I mean,
after 70 movies.
No, it's not. But it's not about quantity. You've done some amazing work, and you are a martial arts hero. I want to talk about the Ip Man. It's now a household name in terms of a movie series. Number 4 is coming, but do you feel this? Where do you place this in terms of the turning points of your career? Was this really as big a moment for you?
I never really have a, how do you call it? I never try to, I try to take a movie at a time, and even back in the days where my career was really at a very, at the bottom.
Sort of early stages, yeah.
Not just early stages. I mean, I have a couple curves in my entire career. I've been in the business for 35 years. Back in 1997, when I formed my own film company in Hong Kong, and I directed my first film, I had a lot of problems, financial problems, trying to put a film together. And but then when I look back, I said, wow, I've been through so many obstacles. From being a student, being an actor, and then an action choreographer, and a director, and a producer, and I had a couple of breaks, and do bigger movies. Then problem came, and and then how you overcome, and just constantly have these kind of battles with the whole career path. But you know, not right now. I just kind of enjoy what I do. You know, I mean, it's been quite blessed for the last 12, 15 years.
Well,
Things it's been quite good. So now I'm very fortunate. I can choose my films and do the films I like.
Films choose you too, which is amazing. You know, but I'll also say it's funny. Bruce Lee. Thinking of Bruce, he was almost broke and destitute. He was married with a child. You know, I guess my point about your point about the arc of a career is very important for everyone in this room, especially fans to hear, because not every career, no career goes zip like that. Bruce Lee had $50, by his account, $50 in the bank, married with a kid, then wrote his book that changed his life. So every decision is important, but they're not all great decisions. But you've made some amazing ones. The Ip Man, you know, thinking of you know, we shared a few emails, and over my shoulder you can see the real Ip Man and Bruce Lee. And I want to get into the Bruce Lee because I know he's been such a inspiration on a cinematic level, maybe a spiritual level. You know, you've paid homage to him in different films. This, you know, the dojo fight sequences, legendary. Talk about your first introduction to Bruce Lee, and what did he mean to you when you first started seeing his films?
Well, I looked up at Bruce like everybody else. I was a big fan. As a young teenager, I needed a role model, and being Chinese, I didn't find anybody except for Bruce Lee. And I guess plus the fact that I was a martial artist, I can relate to, or I try to relate to him. And absolutely, you know, I mean, you're right, you know, about my tribute to paying respect to Bruce Lee. You got to remember, during my eras, we didn't have a lot of other luxuries. We didn't have an iPhone. Plus, my family was working very hard, you know, trying to make a living. So all my time was dedicated to just practicing martial arts. I mean, I'd done nothing but practicing martial arts. I mean, but also piano. But that's yeah. I don't know if some of you know. You know, I come from a really strange combination of both music and martial art. My father is a violinist, so when I was young, I was introduced to playing piano, and I didn't spend a lot of years studying piano, classical piano. But when I was 14, I met a friend, and at the time he was studying piano, and he got me interested in playing piano again. So I started to explore. I used to go to these Chinatown Boys Club and hang out in Boys Club, and I found a beat-up piano, and I started playing the piano, and I discovered, hey, wait a minute, you know, I have a little music sense in me. So I started learning or relearning the piano, the classical piano, at the time, and I was getting pretty good. So when I was 15, I said to myself, which direction should I go? Should I continue to pursue as a musician or a kung fu man? And then I said to myself, I was really thinking about going to Juilliard in New York. I was, you know,
Wow.
I was getting pretty good, you
That's
know.
amazing.
And then I said, you know what? I don't think I can ever be the best musician, but I have this feeling inside that I believe one day I can be the best martial artist. So I kind of went on another direction. But don't get me wrong, I still play piano. You know, my family plays piano, my kids, my wife, and you know, I still love music.
What's interesting, you know, as soon as I reached out to you and you said, you know, I'd be interested in talking a little bit about Bruce, there are a lot of spiritual, and I don't mean spiritual in a religious sense, but his father was an actor, very well-known actor, and met his mother when they were touring the U.S. His mother has European heritage, so he came from a mixed cultural background. Bruce Lee was a child actor, very much self-taught, and the more I started watching Bruce Lee films this week, his philosophy is in his movies. This is one of the most interesting things. He went into movies because he thought, I can reach the most people through the movies. Does that come into your mind when you think of what movies you want to choose and your practice?
You know, Bruce Lee is a legend, and he's a ground. He's just an icon of our decades. I can't really compare myself to his level. You know, when I make films, I try to use as I get more mature and I progress as a human being, my films varies. So I don't really have a deep philosophical approach like Bruce. Although that most of my films came out and turned out that way, maybe, you know, without trying it too hard, it actually worked out okay.
Ip Man has a lot of that for me. You know, there's a scene. We talked a little bit via email. You talked about the Bruce Lee film, The Way of the Dragon, which I thought it's a really interesting film, Way of the Dragon, because he called it his most personal film. And there's a lot of his philosophy in The Way of the Dragon. And one of the most famous sequences of Way of the Dragon is the fight with Chuck Norris. And at the end, when this is spoiler alert, he defeats Chuck Norris, he goes over to him and pays a kind of tribute to him. And your work in the Ip Man series, maybe it's scripted that way, but there is a kind of wonderful ghost effect that maybe you're not consciously chasing this thing, but he was an important Chinese symbol. You know, he was a big source of. He was the biggest movie star in the world.
I think he still is. In a lot of respects, he still is. You know? I mean, if you look at all the action films today, the whole formula, like the whole one person versus the other person, that kind of structure in an action movies. I mean, Bruce Lee created that back in The Way of Dragon, Enter the Dragon. Then you have all the Jackie Chan movies and, you know, my movies and everybody else's movies.
That sort of showdown.
Yeah.
That it's funny, Way of the Dragon, watching it again this week, it's almost like a Western. Yeah. It's very much of a showdown film. When did you first see his? Were you first watching his movies? You said, were you watching them in theaters? Were you watching them? Were they playing in homes in China at the time? Where was your first introduction to, say, Enter the Dragon? Do you remember the first time you saw that?
Oh, the big boss! Every single one of those films. My father used to take me to before I went to Boston, and he used to take me to cinemas, and Bruce Lee was one of these movies that he takes me to, but not until when I became a little bit older and started to practice martial arts, and I rewatch these movies, then it really came very clear.
Yeah.
You know, I can see, you know, what the beauties in his films.
The first sequence in Enter the Dragon is that's Sammo Hung, actually. Did you ever talk to Sammo about Master Lee, about Bruce Lee?
I'm sure I have, you know. I mean, you know, we have different conversations.
Yeah, and actually Jackie Chan is in Enter the Dragon as well. There's a very famous sequence.
He was in Fist of Fury. He's one of the stunt guys that get kicked.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in Enter the Dragon, there's a famous kind of prison break at the end, and Jackie is a guard because he used to do a lot of these choreography, and Bruce Lee did a lot of choreography as well. You just to talk a little bit about Way of the Dragon, then we can get onto some other things. But Way of the Dragon, he also directed. I thought that was really interesting. You guys know Donnie's directed. You've directed.
I directed. Yeah. See, this is the culture in Hong Kong film industry. You know, it's slightly different. Well, a lot different from the West, where we take up different positions. As an actor, sometimes you direct too. You may not see that actor's credit, but he takes over and he does different things. for example, a fight choreographer. Yu Ping was always a fight choreographer in the beginning, right? But he literally directed the whole sequences of action sequences.
Because the director gets out of the way.
That's always been the practice in Hong Kong industry. When you're a fight choreographer, you are the director. You take over.
And
so
in America,
it's always been that way. And as a fight choreographer for many, many years, I direct my scenes. Jackie direct his scenes. Everybody have that kind of knowledge and experience in the industry. Gets to direct their films. Is that kind of mutual respect? Is that kind of culture? Without putting your name on it. When Yu Ping did Crouching Tiger, you think Ang Lee did most of the films, most of the scenes? He didn't. Yu Ping shot most of the scenes.
Yeah.
When you watch Hero, Zhang Yimou didn't do many of those scenes. Cheng Xiudong, the other action director, he directed, he set up the shots, he edited the shots.
The Matrix.
Well, I don't know about the Matrix because like
at least
said,
those
in the
action
industry,
sequences,
right?
yeah.
Because it's different practice in the industry. I'm sure.
We'll talk about that because you've had to get used to that a little bit, probably, where the action director doesn't completely take over.
Very frustrated. My first movie I did when I did it for Miramax Highlander, and they said, Donnie, can you come in and do this fight? I said, oh sure. Can I bring my team? I said, oh, why do you need a team? You're a fight choreographer. But they don't understand, in my world, fight choreographer, like I take over the set and shoot the action. So I guess I learned quickly, so it was just me. So I quickly realized that they would consider a fight choreographer is like a dance choreographer. You choreograph the moves and then you let the cameraman or the director or whoever, the producer even on the set takes over. But I find that kind of silly because no one would understand the movements more than the person who choreographed it. Well, obviously, given the choreographer got to have that years of film experience, he understands the cuts where the shots are connected together. He understands where the camera angle is. But he should be the one that can provide the best result. I mean, I literally, on the set, watch these directors or cameramen figure out how to shoot this. Like, what is this? Oh, let me get an angle here. Let me get an angle here. And time has been wasted. I mean, these were the horrible experience I went through from Highlander, Blade. I mean, even
Blade,
recent.
Yeah, Blade 2.
Blade 2. Again, I mean, by all means, I'm very good friends with Guillermo, and even Guillermo himself admit to me, he apologized, Donnie. You got to understand, nowadays, the whole Hong Kong action style influence, basically all the industry kind of acknowledge that form of art. But back in the days, recently, only recently, 7-8 years ago, the practice was still kind of primitive. I call it primitive. So back to what I was saying, Guillermo called me recently and he apologized to me. I didn't not know how to utilize your knowledge as a fight choreographer, and just had you choreograph some moves. And that's why for the longest time, when you see a Hong Kong action or the good Hong Kong action movies, the quality is a lot higher than, a lot more intense, a lot more intricate, with the shots and how we stage the fight. And how come all the Hong Kong movies, the fights are a little bit better? Well, because we shot it better. We edited it better. But things are changing now, I mean, I did my recent movie, Triple X. Some of the stunt guys, they actually worked with Yu Ping or with myself, and they study a lot of Hong Kong movies, a lot of from my movies like Flashpoint, SPL. So they understand it's not to study these films. And when you watch the action movies today, in the Hollywood blockbuster, the quality is a lot higher than before.
It's funny. I watched the Watchmen movie the other day, and there's a fight sequence that starts the movie. It's actually a really exciting they're not martial artists, but it has a lot of martial artistry. So I think Hollywood is.
No, I think it's not just about understanding the martial art, but it's the whole. They understand the importance of putting these shots together in a very finesse way. Like I was saying, when I did Triple X, the stuntman and the stunt coordinator and the stuntmen, they told me, he said, the first thing that I do, they have this union in America.
Yes. I've heard, yes.
Right. The first.
No, I know.
So they told me, we have to, the first thing that we do is to study films like Flashpoint, SPL, shot by shot. How do you put these shots together? How do you edit these shots together?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I want to get to the portion where I said this part will be like if you guys had a moment with Donnie. I want to go through some of the great martial arts figures, and if you can give me a thought or two on where they sit. Are they people that history embraces, or where do you put them in the whole legend of martial artistry? We talked about the Shaw Brothers. I mean, anyone who knows martial arts films, you have to know the Shaw Brothers legacy. They're still on TV now, and it's brilliant. What about Street Fighter? Were you a Sonny Chiba fan? Was he ever in your?
Not as much. Not as much.
It's a different kind of genre. It's more of a grindhouse genre, I think.
I mean, those Black Belt Jones.
It's a little bit blaxploitation with a little bit of drive-in movie sensibility. I was thinking of this small independent film you just did called Rogue One. Modest budget, I'm sure. And I was thinking of Zatoichi. Did you watch The Blind Swordsman?
Of course, when I was a kid, yeah.
Talk a little bit, for those guys who don't know who Zatoichi is, The Blind Swordsman.
These are classic samurai, the Japanese movies.
Incredible. Was any part of your take on your character?
I was inspired by these when Edward.
There if you
sorry,
need.
When the director called me and asked me about my thought of the character he was proposing to me. At the time, Chirrut. By the way, Chirrut wasn't exactly like that on the script. First of all. He wasn't supposed to be blind. So we had that discussion, and through creative discussion, he asked me, what do you think, Donnie? Because you have so much experience in action movies. So I said, well, I looked at the script and looked at the roles. I said, you know what? I think it would be a lot cooler if he's blind. I said, oh, that's interesting. And then, I said, and then... even with some of the lines, right? And then I also suggested to him he should have sense of humor, because I said, that's interesting. Because the original role was a slightly more cliche, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm getting Donnie Yen, I'm getting Ip Man, so therefore, I'm getting be Chinese, be Zen, be a Kung Fu master. I said, don't you think that's kind of cliche in today's world? Because I said that to him, in a very diplomatic way. I said, I kind of feel like, I think the world is ready. Just because I'm Chinese, doesn't mean that, I only eat rice, right? So,
I'm glad that clears that up.
So we kind of collaborated and shape the character to Chirrut. At the end, some of the lines I even improvised on the set. Excuse me. For example, with the part when they cover me with the, and I said, "Hey, I'm blind. Are you kidding me?" It improvised lines because I'm so used to improvisation in my world in Hong Kong films, because we never used to have scripts. We shoot it as we go, as the creative sparks kicks in, right? So my creative sparks kicks in, and I said, you know what? I should say that line at that moment, and I suggested, and I said it, and he liked it, and he got approved by Disney, and it became a funny line.
You reminded me of Wong Kar-wai doesn't use scripts, and there's also the system of getting approval of scripts is very different in China as well. Different conversation for a different day. It's a beautifully drawn character. I mean, it's so precise and nuanced. But when I saw it, I didn't think of it in a bad way. I just thought, oh, it's so beautiful. And it made me think of Zatoichi and the history, and it was beautiful.
But that was a little inspiration from several things, right? From the Chinese wuxia movies, as a little bit of the Japanese samurai movies, a little bit of combination of Ip Man. It just years of me playing in different roles, and I was drawing bit and pieces from here and there. But I was on a daily basis. I was shaping the character as I was filming. I mean, truthfully, I don't believe you can totally understand your character until the very end of the movie, because during shooting, you're constantly getting feedback from your maybe actors, or you start thinking differently.
You're adding.
Yeah, you're adding within the content of
course.
the storyline and with the characters' backgrounds and histories.
I think the acting is one of the great strengths of Rogue One. I think it's a finely acted film. You mentioned wuxia films. Wuxia and you mentioned Ang Lee and Wu Ping, who we'll speak about. Did you watch wuxia? Did anyone? Because it's funny, your mom is one of the basis of Jade Fox. The Jade Fox character.
When Crouching Tiger came out, my mother called me and said, "Can you call Ang Lee and tell him that Zhang Zi wasn't doing the swords properly?"
Wow.
Seriously, that's what she said. I said, "Mom,
your
this
mom
is a movie.
A badass."
This is a movie." I meet Sifu teachers, sensei every single day, and they used to, Donnie, you could do this in this certain movie, or they make their comments on some of the martial arts they see on movies, and they would try to have me to change that because they feel that I have the what do you call it, the seniority, the voice. It's really hard to explain to, I didn't want to hurt their feelings,
Right.
So actually this is a movie.
Well, you did the follow-up to Crouching Tiger with Michelle Yeoh, Wu Ping directed. Was it fun and interesting to be wuxia? I mean, you've done other wuxia films.
I've done a lot of wuxia films.
Yeah.
I mean, you basically, you break it down to several categories, in these type of films, martial art films, Chinese martial art films. The very old wuxia movie, like Hero, Shaw Brothers movie, Crouching Tigers, then the closer you come to modern days, for me when I choreograph my fight scenes, it has to be a lot more real, because it just doesn't make any sense, right? For modern day, unless the story is that way, but basically, the further you away from modern day, the higher you can jump off buildings. That's pretty much. Well, that's my.
Well, it's one of the great things the Ip Man series did. It grounded the genre again. I think Ip Man needed to come along. There's not a lot of wire work. There's not a lot of long leaping kicks. There's a lot of defense, because Wing Chun is not it seems like it's not an attack measure. It's more of a defense measure.
I might break people's heart, I mean, I only started to study Wing Chun a few months before Ip Man.
Yeah, we're going to give you all refunds.
And everybody is like, looking at me, as the voice for Wing Chun, I'm in no position to voice.
You've inspired people to want to learn it. Again, not to go back to Bruce Lee, but in the way that these figures inspire, you've changed people's life. Maybe, that's a character. If people can't make the separation,
right,
that's not your responsibility. But you've maybe inspired people to learn more about Wing Chun. And that's amazing. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of martial artists oh, thank you for what I've done. I greatly appreciate but for me, I'm a martial artist. It's in my blood. But for me, the most important is how do I use my films to connect with people? with emotion. And by all means, if this area in that film can also share some of my martial arts knowledge, by all means. But my priority is always trying to make the best film first. And I just got really, I guess, lucky that many of these films also carry along some martial arts influence. For example, Ip Man or Flashpoint, or hopefully many movies in the future.
Let's do some names. Jet Li. Jet, how has he... This is what we'll do. I'll give you a series of names. You tell me high impact on the genre. What's been his impact on the genre, Jet Li?
I think it's pretty clearly that before Bruce Lee, there was these black and white Chinese kung fu movies, poorly shot.
And mostly swordplay. A lot
Very slow, and
Yeah.
it wasn't really realistic. And obviously, Bruce Lee really brought the realism of martial arts into the movies. And then the comedy side of it, when Jackie Chan brought the acrobatic side of it, then when Jet Li came, he brought the northern style of martial arts. See, there's the big difference between southern kung fu style of martial arts, Chinese martial arts, compared to northern styles. Kung fu movies, the way you look at kung fu movies, these kind of, the rhythm is very 1, 2, 3, 4, very in a block, very squarish. You have a rhythm of these kung fu movies. Like
Right.
You duck, you block, you punch. So actually, there's a reason why, because kung fu movies were started from Hong Kong. And Hong Kong, primarily Southern Chinese. And the Southern Chinese martial arts, because of their language, because of their culture, is a lot more choppy, like Cantonese compared to Mandarin. Mandarin is very flow. It's like, wow, so like singing. But Cantonese is like, chop, 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 chop. So the style that we've been practicing, the Southern martial art style for decades, was Southern martial arts like Hong Ga, Wing Chun. They're very 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, that's where karate came from.
Yeah.
Okinawa karate, from the Southern style martial arts. So that influenced all the fighting styles in majority of the kung fu movies. So when you see a Shaw Brothers movies, these fight choreographer or the actors that understand martial arts, they all learn Southern martial arts style.
Yeah.
The choreographer choreographed it with his Southern martial arts rhythm. Then Jet Li's from Beijing. He practiced the Northern style, very flow, very fluid. So when he came in and they did all the, well, of course, that's another story, Tsui Hark, a great director, helped.
Once Upon a Time in China.
To help Jet through Tsui Hark's film and kind of made that Northern style popular.
Amazing.
So from Jet Li, during that whole 10 years, he basically changed the rhythm of Hong Kong action movies.
Is that all? That's you mentioned Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, I think, you say he introduced this new aesthetic, or tone, but he's more than just comedic. Some of his fight sequences are legion. I mean, are incredible. Do you think we don't think of him? We are mistaken in not thinking of him as a high-level martial artist. Do you think Jackie Chan is a high-level martial artist, or is he more a high-level character creator?
Oh, for sure. Jackie, I have tremendous respect for the big brother, but he started off as an acrobatic.
Yeah.
He was never really a true martial artist, unlike Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee always been, and today, if you read about he's would consider himself a martial artist before a filmmaker.
Sammo Hung, someone you've worked with, I often think is overlooked. What do you think of? Do you think he's made a high impact on the genre? You talked about Golden Harvest.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. You know, I mean, he was more of a passionate martial artist at the time as well. So if you can see through his films, they were harder, more real.
Yes.
He was going for the creation of the authenticity of martial arts, a lot more than Jackie.
Yeah.
And also the personalities too. If you look at a person's films, you can it's kind of like a reflection of his personality.
Yes.
Jackie likes to have fun. He's 60-something years old and he still acts the same way. You know, he acts the same way in real person as the films.
Those are
So
documentaries, basically.
You know, he's always jumping around and. He likes to sweep the floor. I mean, seriously, he likes to take the broom and
He'll
sweep
be
the floor.
cleaning up this room, actually.
I said, hey, Jackie, what are you doing? I said, well, he's kind of dirty over here. Let me sweep the floor, you know? I mean, that's his personality, right? Jambo is a lot more military, like more, because he's the big brother of the clan.
Right.
And, you know, he was a big-time director. And, you know, he have that kind of macho-ness in him. That's when you see his film, it reflects.
What about Michelle Yeoh? Do you think Michelle has had a high impact on the...
Oh, for female, yes, of course. Yeah. You know, I mean,
She called you the fastest martial artist she's ever worked with. That's not a bad compliment. And she's still doing amazing things,
Yes.
and a gracious lady. Let's go through... we don't have to do the filmmakers.
John Woo. You know, I mean,
Yeah, we'll do the
That was
filmmakers
good.
another time. How about Muscles from Brussels, Jean-Claude
I
Van
never
Damme?
worked with the muscle from Brussels.
I like how you
I
said
never
that.
worked with him before. I met him in Hong Kong several times, you know, but we never really got a chance to. I remember watching his very first film with Corey Yuen. I think he started his career with Corey Yuen, another old-timer Hong Kong action fight choreographer, kind of discovered him. He played a bad guy, but then he outshined the lead.
Yeah.
That's how he became famous. Is that correct?
I think so. And he did a really cool dance sequence once. What about Tony Jaa?
Oh, he and I became quite good friends shooting Triple X.
Yeah.
But again, I never got a chance to work with him in terms of like really working with him. Like in Triple X, basically I did my stuff and you know, I went on to do other stuff and and then he does his stuff. So I know a lot of fans like to see us
Together.
Yeah.
As we finish off our talk today, a couple of I came all this way to ask you also about some of the American influencers. Of course, we just
Chuck
call
Norris?
him Norris in the States. What do you think about Chuck Norris?
I mean, I have to, all of these, every single one of them had their moments and their contribution to the whole genre during that period. And these are true pioneers. I mean, we can't really and use today's standard, especially the sophistication of understanding, watching the movies. I think modern technology has taught us so much that we can. I mean, we have iPhones, right? We can shoot movies by ourselves. Visually, we are a lot more sophisticated. So you can't really look back in these some of these seniors and say, oh,
Yes.
you know, it's different genre. It's like
is a different
you can't
genre.
look at, you know, but they all contribute a whole lot and change the whole history of martial art films.
Last comment, and then we go. Sammo Hung said this recently. He wants to start a school. I don't know if he's ever talked to you, a school in Shanghai where he teaches martial arts movie making. He's concerned that the old style of martial arts is effectively out of cinema. What do you think about the future? Do you think we can have a mixture of high technical brilliance but keep the core physical
course.
mastery?
I have been doing it all along, and I'm
So
still
don't go
doing
anywhere, man.
I'm still doing it. I'm still changing. I'm still progressing. I'm still evolving. Of course, you know, if you watch my films, every single my films there's a little bit different about it because I'm evolving.
Right.
Go back to the same statement I said in the beginning of the conversation that I feel like I'm a student all over again. Every movie, I feel like there are more things to learn. I think only with that kind of openness, you can bring these type of films to the next level. You know, you cannot sit back and say, oh, the past, you know, we used to do this, we used to do that. I never look at a film and say, oh, we used to do that, you know. A lot of people still compliment with me, with my Flashpoint and SPO, man. I say, oh, you know, this. I never really take it too seriously because I'm not gonna do the same thing again, you know. I want to progress and I want to do something to another level or more refreshing.
One fan question and then we go. I've heard a lot of martial artists say it's harder to fake fight than to really fight. So before you answer that question, could you kick me? Could you? I think that's the way we should. Can you like show? Can you just show me? Not like really kick me. Could you like fake? Can you show me how the kick would work on me? This has been like a lifelong dream. I don't have much time left on this earth. No, I do. But could you just show me, like, without hurting yourself, could you show me, like, what would I keep in mind if you were going to kick me? Yeah. Now, yeah, okay. So, oh, my God, that's terrifying. I didn't feel a thing. Master Donnie Yenn, everybody. Donnie Yenn.
Thank you.
Thank you, London.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Thank you. Donnie Yenn, everybody.
Thank you
we'll
for coming.
We'll see you again, everybody. Thank you so much.
Right, well, Master Yenn, with your permission, we're now going to open the floor to the audience because we've got some people that would like to ask you some questions, if that's okay. Okay, so we're going to start off and go with the questions. We're going to go with this gentleman here in the front row.
Master Yenn, thank you very much for coming to London.
Call me Donnie, please.
Donnie, okay, that'd be great. For my money, the most brutal fight scene you've ever done is the one with Colin Cho and Flashpoint. I was wondering for you, what has been the most physically demanding fight scene you've ever done and why?
I've done a lot of stuff. I don't know. I mean, every time I do a movie, and then it becomes tougher because, and then I ask myself, how come? Like every movie's, like I'll be saying to myself, "Oh, this is a tough movie. I'm not gonna repeat myself." But you know what? Every time I would get myself in the situations, another tough situation. I think it's more of a self-challenge. I mean, I would create scenes or act a scene, and I say, this is not refreshing enough, innovative enough. And I would change the scene. And then it'd be like in Flashpoint or in Monkey King. I just finished a movie called Chasing the Dragon, where I play this based on a real story. This gangster, and I wanted to have a breakthrough, so I hire a prosthetic from Hollywood, and I put myself into a makeup chair 3 hours a day to transform my face to look that part, right? And then I said to myself, wow, I'm going through the same thing again. I'm constantly finding obstacles, finding new grounds where I can reach. So I mean, I can't say I don't remember. I mean, I've gone through it all. You know what I mean? Where I'm in the middle of the desert, 50 degrees, full armors, sweating inside, right? Steam coming out of my head. Seriously, I mean, now I look back, I could have died, right? But during that moment, because if you are such a passionate filmmaker and a perfectionist, you don't think about that. You're just thinking about, let me get this shot. I mean, I didn't know how to ride a horse, but when I was on the set and I knew that the next week I have to do it, these horse scenes where I'm the hero, I'm on the horse, and I'm holding the sword. I was practicing horse riding every single day until to that scene. And then at the end of the day, I was fighting with the sword, with the heavy armor on the horse. And then the scene came out pretty good. I think that we have such a great ability within ourselves that sometimes it's going to take a little bit of that, like, do you want it bad enough to pull it out of you? And I've been using that kind of motivations and self-inspirations, throughout many of my films in the past. So every films that I treat as a new battleground, what can I do? What am I going to do, right? So Flashpoint was difficult. Every movie was really difficult. I couldn't move my arms. I was in pain because I probably threw about 1,000 punch in each take. You know what I'm saying? Until I need a therapist on the set to keep, with ice and different method of soothing the pain out of my arms to finish that shot. Some of the stuff that you see on my films, and he could do this, all that, right? But the process was nightmare. Especially back in my career, I didn't have a trailer. It's not like today where you have a trailer, you have to take a coffee break. I was doing 18-hour shoot a day in the middle of streets in Hong Kong where lunch break is 15 minutes. I have a lunchbox and finish my food, and you got to get right back into the next shot, and then complete the shots with perfection.
Okay, so we've got a few minutes left, and we go to this gentleman here in the middle.
I just wanted to find out what your thoughts are on some of these terrible body doubles that they're using in a lot of the productions on, say, something like Netflix or some of the movies at the moment.
I think it's a big debate. Recently there's a lot of articles talking about doubles, and I think it's perfectly fine to have a doubles. It's really depends on how you use your doubles. If you're gonna have a shot where you see two person walking across an avenue where you don't see that actor, and the actor is reserving his energy for his next intense, dramatic scene, you know what? By all means, use a double. Or a very life-threatening situation where, actors are humans. They can't do it all, right? We shouldn't expect them to do it all. So, but at the same time, if you take that for granted and say, be lazy and sit in your trailer and watch TV where, let the stunt double do it, of course, but then again, the audience are smart enough to see that, hey, is that you? Is that the actor giving that performance? Whether that performance is a physical performance or dramatic performance, you can see.
And we've got time for one very quick question, and we're going to go to this lady at the front.
Hi, Donnie. So, who's your favourite collaboration, and who would you like to collaborate in the future?
I like to work with any true artist. There's so many. There's so many of them. I can't just name one because I'm not being fair to others. I admire a lot of different actors, good actors. I appreciate their work. Every movie, like I said, it's a new experience for me. And then by working with different people, you learn from each other, and you create new sparks.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a massive round of applause to the brilliant
Thank
Donnie
you.
Yenn!
Thank you.